What if the very places we go to heal are actually becoming some of the most dangerous workplaces in the entire country? Well, today, we're diving into the pretty alarming rise of violence in hospitals and the huge new rules that are coming in 2026 to deal with it. We're also going to look at a really powerful new toolkit that's designed to help hospitals not just, check a box for compliance, but to build a genuinely safer place for everyone. All right, let's just start with a reality check because this number, it really says it all. A staggering 73% of all non-fatal workplace injuries from violence happen to healthcare workers. Just let that sink in for a second. The people we trust with our lives are facing an absolute epidemic of violence. This isn't just some number on a slide. It's a crisis, and it's affecting real people every single day. So to really get our heads around this, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the crisis itself. Then we'll break down the new regulations that are meant to fix it and dig into the specifics of the mandate. After that, we'll explore a new toolkit that offers a pretty fresh approach to the problem. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see how a safer future really is possible. Okay, let's dive right in by getting a handle on the true scale of this crisis. And believe me, it's way more than just a few isolated incidents. We're talking about a systemic problem with a real, measurable cost, not just to the healthcare system, but to the people who work so hard within it. The experts on the front lines, they're all sounding the alarm. They're telling us that workplace violence, or WPV, is a complex and growing problem. It's not just about physical safety either. It drains morale, it leads to burnout and high turnover, and that starts to affect the stability of our entire healthcare system. And if the human cost wasn't enough, just look at the money. The financial toll here is just staggering. So with this crisis just getting worse and worse, the Joint Commission, which is the nation's top accreditor for healthcare organizations, is finally stepping in with a major regulatory shift. A whole new era of accountability is right around the corner. Okay, so starting January 1st, 2026, the Joint Commission is rolling out this new thing called the Accreditation 360 model. And the big idea here is actually pretty simple. It's not enough anymore to just have safety policies written down in a binder somewhere. Hospitals are now going to have to prove that those policies are actually working and creating a measurably safer environment. And this move from safety goals to performance goals, that's more than just changing a word. It's a fundamental shift in mindset. Think of it like this. It's the difference between saying, I want to be healthy, and actually tracking what you eat and how much you exercise every day. One is just a nice idea. The other is about getting real, measurable results. And right at the heart of these new performance goals is a specific mandate that is aimed squarely at this violence epidemic. It's a brand new standard that's going to change how hospitals approach safety from the ground up, and it's what we're going to break down right now. So this new standard, it's not some vague suggestion. It is a set of very specific, non-negotiable requirements that they call elements of performance, or EPs for short. So let's take a look at what hospitals will actually have to do to meet this new, much higher bar. First up, EP1. This one demands a formal, comprehensive program. That means there has to be clear leadership from one designated person, input from a whole diverse team, and solid processes for everything from prevention to supporting victims. Basically, accountability for safety now goes all the way to the top. No excuses. Next, EP2 zeroes in on training, and this is where it gets really interesting. The mandate requires ongoing, role-specific training for everyone, from the C-suite all the way down to the frontline staff. And here's the crucial part. It explicitly requires training in de-escalation and non-physical intervention. It's about giving people the skills to manage conflict before it gets violent. And with EP3, this becomes a continuous process. Hospitals can't just set it and forget it anymore. They have to do an annual worksite analysis, proactively hunting for risks, investigating every single incident, and taking real, concrete action to fix what they find. It's all about building a culture of constant improvement. So, the big question is, how do hospitals actually do all this? I mean, it's pretty clear that the old ways of thinking, just adding more guards or cameras, that's not going to cut it. What's needed is a totally new, human-centered strategy that gets to the real root of the problem. And this is where a new approach comes into play. There's a company called Click Advisors, and they've developed a whole suite of evidence-based frameworks that are specifically designed for these high-stakes environments.
They focus right on that intersection of human conflict and physical safety. Let's take a look at how their system works.
So the whole thing is built on this foundation they call the Trust 3 ecosystem. And the core idea is really simple. You can't have physical safety if you don't have psychological safety. This system focuses on building that essential culture of trust and resilience, creating a place where people actually feel safe to speak up, report problems, and support each other.
Building on that cultural foundation is what they call the action model. Think of this as the strategic plan. It gives organizations a systematic way to analyze risk to make sure that violence doesn't just become an accepted part of the daily grind. It's all about shifting the entire organization from being reactive, just putting out fires, to being proactive and stopping them from starting in the first place.
And finally, we get to the tactical level with the Absorb framework. This is the practical, in-the-moment tool that's designed for frontline staff who are staring down a really tense, escalating situation. It's about giving them a clear process to follow when the pressure is on, and, every single second counts.
Acknowledge, breathe, signal, orient, respond, build. It's this memorable, repeatable process that gives staff a roadmap. It helps them absorb all that chaotic energy and actually transform it into a resolution, instead of just meeting tension with more tension. It's all about de-escalation through connection and understanding.
Okay, so we've seen the new Joint Commission mandate, and we've walked through these new strategic frameworks. The real question is, how do these two pieces actually fit together? How do these tools map directly to the specific requirements we just talked about? And this is where it all just clicks together so perfectly. EP1, the requirement to foster a culture of safety, well, that's addressed by the Trust Cubed ecosystem. EP2, that mandate for de-escalation training, that's meant head-on by the practical skills taught in the Absorb framework. And EP3, the need for that annual analysis and risk mitigation, is driven by the strategic action model. It's a complete, integrated solution. And the big takeaway here is that an approach like this is about so much more than just checking a box to stay compliant. This is a real pathway to creating meaningful, lasting change that builds a genuinely resilient and safer organization for the staff and for the patients. It's about creating a future where our healers can actually do their jobs without being afraid.
And that leaves us with one final and pretty urgent question. That deadline, January 1st, 2026, it's coming up fast. The days of having a safety plan that just gathers dust on a shelf are over. So the critical question for every healthcare leader out there is this: is your plan ready to move from paper into practice? And are you ready to lead the change that's going to protect the very people who protect all of us?